Today's event is sponsored by Institute of World Politics. I'm Jim Robbins. I'm the academic dean here at IWP, so thanks for turning out. IWP is the Graduate School of National Security, Intelligence, and International Affairs, located right here in Washington, D.C. We offer a doctoral program, 7 master's degree programs, including online, and 18 certificates of graduate studies. So if you're interested in learning more about us, please speak to one of our staff. We're easily recognizable with the little gold badges. Or visit our website at iwp.edu. We'd like to thank all of our supporters who make IWP events program possible. To support the work of IWP, please visit iwp.edu/donate. Today we'll be hearing from a great friend of the school, a great friend in general, Michael Maybach, in a lecture entitled The Electoral College and How Other Republics Elect Heads of Government. And I promise you asked me to do a short intro, so okay, the short one. Michael is a seasoned professional in global business diplomacy. From 2003 to 2012, he was president and CEO of the European American Business Council after serving for 18 years as the vice president of global government affairs for the Intel Corporation. Today, he is a trustee and managing director of the James Wilson Institute and a distinguished fellow on American federalism at Save Our States. Michael's earned an MA from Northern Illinois University, Georgetown University, Ashland University, and the Institute of World Politics, where he serves as a member of our honorary board of advisors. He frequently speaks at schools and civic groups to discuss and defend the Founders' Constitution and their Electoral College design. So please join me in welcoming Michael Maybach.
Thank you, Jim. You have to go to do a TV interview, I hear, or something.
No, I already did it.
Oh, you did? Okay, very good. Thank you, and good afternoon. It's a beautiful day, and thank you, Jim, for the introduction. It's such an honor to be at the Institute of World Politics. It's really a very special place where a lot of the faculty are practitioners of the art of statecraft, and I certainly recommend this as a graduate student school for people pursuing a master's or a PhD. Now they have a PhD program, which is fairly new at the Institute. So I'm going to speak with you today about our Constitution, the world's oldest Constitution, and I want to start with a story from first grade. My first day in first grade in St. Philomena Grade School in Peoria, Illinois. Sister Mary Jean asked us all that first day to take out construction paper and our crayons and for 15 minutes draw a picture of a famous person, and then we'd each get up and talk about our famous person. I did Eddie Matthews, third baseman for the Milwaukee Braves, of course, number 41. And he's in heaven, but he's in the Hall of Fame, too. So after 15 minutes, we all stopped, and we were supposed to start talking about our famous person, but Pat Monroe across the aisle from me, Patrick Monroe, continued to draw feverishly, and the nun said, "Now, Patrick, put down your crayon. It's time to get on with things here." And he said, "Well, it's very important. I have to finish. It's very important." She said, "What could be so important? Who are you drawing a picture of?" To which he said, "I'm drawing a picture of God." To which he said, "Now, Patrick, no one knows what God looks like." To which he said, "They will in a minute." He's now retired and lives in Florida. I keep in touch with that, Patrick. True story. So, I'm going to go through some slides with you, and I'm going to take the microphone with me, I guess I'd say, because I do like to walk around. And we're going to cover a lot of territory because I think we have to be appreciative of the historic state of our country in 1776 and then 1787. James Wilson, one of the signers of both the Declaration and the Constitution, said law and liberty cannot rationally become the objects of our love unless they first become the objects of our knowledge. Oldest Constitution in the United States is the United States Constitution. Schumpeter said that talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see. There were no constitutions like our Constitution. Maybe the Roman Republic had something similar, but really it was almost from whole cloth the way they did this, modeled after actually the Massachusetts Constitution written by Adams. The American Revolution of 1776, in that period, the world was full of tyranny, slavery, and poverty. These are some rulers in 1776. Catherine the Great, Russia; Charles III, Spain; Louis XVI, Emperor Joseph II. The whole Holy Roman Empire was around till 1806. The premier of China and Japan. George III, of course, we had a revolution with him. Slavery, of course, the Old Testament is full of slavery. Moses and all the rest. Slave markets in Egypt, in Rome. Slave trade routes in Africa. Tribes capturing enemies and selling them to other tribes. And then, of course, for more than 200 years, we had the slave trade going across the Atlantic, where Africans, by and large, were selling enemies of theirs to the Europeans, who then took them to first to the sugar crops, and then tobacco in the United States and South America. Why was that? Well, the three great powers surrounded the colonies. They were Spain and France and England. Declaration of Independence. Everyone knows this line: we're endowed by our Creator with our rights. To secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, and that's the goal of the Constitution, was to secure our rights. The Liberty Bell was commissioned by the legislature of Pennsylvania in 1751, and it only has one quote from the Old Testament: proclaim liberty throughout all the land and to the inhabitants thereof. So our founders studied history. If you don't know history, you'll always be a child, Cicero reminded us. Our roots are deep in Western civilization. This is downtown D.C. before the metro was put in. Churchill said, the longer you can look backward, the farther you can look forward. And why is that? Why is that? Anyone have an idea?
History repeats.
Well, part of the answer is because man's nature does not change. Therefore, we can learn because there's no new problem under the sun, is there? Right? The reason I mention that is to understand the founders, you have to understand that they believed that man's nature was broken and constant. To not believe that is to not understand the Constitution of the United States, because it is full of checks and balances because of our broken nature. We are forgivable and redeemable, but not perfectible. Ancient Greece, of course, is very important to our roots history, and this is the trial of whom? Who? Socrates, very good. What was he on the trial for? Okay, but let's have some of the interns here. Some of the... Okay. And not honoring the gods of Greece. Oh, thank you very much. Okay. And this is what's going on here. What student knows about what's going on here? Ah, some blank faces. All right. Yes?
Socrates is given an herb that he can eat to kill himself.
It's called hemlock.
Hemlock, and he does so as a last act of virtue.
Thank you. This is Plato right here. These are his students. He saw his wife, and then they left, and his students came. He'd been a teacher, an itinerant teacher. There weren't formal schools. That's why Socrates invented the academy, right? He started the first university. So Socrates writes about the trial of, Plato writes about the trial of Socrates, and when he was 24, he had witnessed the trial and death. And so I recommend all people, especially students, read Plato's Apology. And of course, that trial convinced Plato that human nature was broken. Here, the people in a trial by jury put his teacher to death for asking questions. My gosh, no free speech. And so he writes in his very important book, The Republic, he writes about different forms of government, but in chapter 8 he writes that tyranny always arises from democracy. It's a problem. And his student, his number one student, was Aristotle. Aristotle had to struggle with the problem of democracy. And he came up with the idea of mixed regime, what we call checks and balances today, in his book called The Politics in 350 BC. The Romans read this and adopted the structure for the Roman Republic. And here is an org chart of sorts of the Roman Republic. I was afraid of that. But look at this, Isaiah 33:22. The Lord is the judge, the lawgiver, and the king. 300 years before Aristotle, we had the three branches of government in the Old Testament. Nothing new under the sun. So the Roman Republic is one of the main influences of the U.S. government. That's why downtown D.C. looks like ancient Rome. And that architecture, the Jefferson Memorial, the White House, the Capitol building, of course. Federalist Papers, Publius is one of the three founders of the Roman Republic. That's where the Federalist Papers got their name, from Publius. But Caesar was assassinated in the Roman Senate in the Ides of March 15, 44 BC, and the Roman Republic becomes the Roman Empire. And the founders, you see, this looks like Washington, D.C. We have the obelisk and all the rest. And the founders read history, and they knew that they had a republic and they lost it. Now, if you get rid of a king, how do you not have another king? You have to go from unlimited to limited power. This is the whole idea of writing things down. And this was inspired partly by the disaggregation of power in the mindset of the Protestant Reformation, which was the disaggregation of religious power, very bloody contretemps in Europe. The founders quoted many things, but in the study of their letters, their speeches, their writings, correspondence, the Bible was the number one thing they quoted. About 30% of the quotes they used were from the Bible. And it is said that Madison and Hamilton both remarked, we have a written constitution inspired by the idea that you write things down like the Ten Commandments. Also, quotations come from the Old Testament, Deuteronomy, Romans, the New Testament, thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil, the idea of majority tyranny. Jeremiah, the heart is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. The checks and balances were remarked on this quote by Washington, Adams, and Hamilton. In questions of power, then, let no more be heard of confidence in man, but bind him down from mischief by the chains of the Constitution. So, man being broken. The second most quoted book was Baron Montesquieu's book, Spirit of the Laws, 1748. So the founders all read this book, probably in the original French. Montesquieu was a Frenchman. He spent 20 years studying why democracies fail. And of course, he came up with the same refined ideas of Aristotle, the separation of powers. What we call a republican government. We don't have a democracy. We have a republic with democratic features. But the Supreme Court is not elected by the people. That's not democratic. And the president's elected by 50 elections and aggregated in the Electoral College. So only the House is really a completely democratic institution. The Senate is 2 senators, no matter if it's Massachusetts or it's California. When Madison arrives in May 1787 to help write the Constitution, he writes in his diary, the problem we're going to have is representation. We have 13 self-governing states, all very independent. Most people never left their state their whole life. They're mostly farmers and some small tradesmen, if you will, shopkeepers. and therefore the large and small states will fear each other in interest of power. For example, Virginia had twice as many people as Georgia, or 10 times as many people as Georgia, Delaware fewer, and Rhode Island even fewer than that. Rhode Island did not even send delegates to Philadelphia in 1787, so much did they fear James Madison and Washington. The Virginians, from the most populous state, would try to take over the whole country. But Madison's Virginia plan failed, and so did William Patterson's New Jersey plan. And then we had, in the middle of the summer, had 116 days in that non-air conditioned room with the shades drawn in Philadelphia, the Great Compromise, which was James Madison and Roger Sherman and others coming up with the formula: the House will be by population, but the Senate, every state gets 2 senators, no matter Rhode Island, Delaware, or Virginia. And that's the only reason we have a Constitution, or it was accepted, because of this Connecticut Compromise. This balance of state power and population. The last week of the convention, they had not decided how to elect a president. So they spent 100 days arguing about it, but never deciding it. Then they had a committee of 11 go off, including James Wilson and others, and came up with the Electoral College plan. They asked themselves, do we have a national popular vote? No, because there'll always be someone from Boston, New York, Philadelphia, or maybe Virginia. It'll never be from the other states. How about an election by Congress? Well, then we won't have checks and balances. The Congress will serve at the president will serve at the pleasure of Congress, and we'll have legislative tyranny, most likely. Election by the states. We'll have votes either by the legislature or the people of every state, and then we'll aggregate those using the Electoral College counting system. And that's what we have. So here's a question. What is this a map of? S'il vous plaît. What is this a map of? No? Sir? Yes? Okay, here's one guess, which is the electoral votes. Any other guesses? There's actually 2 answers. One is, it's the congressional seats. The second is, it's the Electoral College. What they've done really is recreate the Congress, but instead of aggregating them, so for example, I live in Virginia. We have 11 House members and 2 senators, so we have 13 electors. I live in the 8th Congressional District, and last year and 4 years ago, I was an elector, elected by my party, but every party in every state elects their electors. That's how they get elected. And then whomever wins the popular vote of that state, that party's electors then go to the state capitol 4 weeks after the election, and 4 weeks after that, the House of Representatives and the Senate meet to open up the ballots and see who's won the presidency. So in effect, they recreated the Congress, but they've disaggregated the Congress, and the electors vote once and then they're gone. Because they didn't want to have members of Congress doing deals with presidential candidates. So you can't be a member of Congress and be an elector at the same time. So the Electoral College is not a problem, it was the solution to a problem. It recreates the Congress one day to elect our president, and then it goes away. It's actually very straightforward when you think about it this way. And this is our American federalism, this triangle here. Now, just to reinforce this idea of human nature, there's lots written about this over time. Now, the founders lived in the Newtonian age, the age of science. And you have to remember that. Franklin with his kite and the key, and Jefferson with all kinds of things. Newton had a great influence on their thinking. He was the generation before. Now, which is the strongest geometric figure here? Ma'am? What do you think? Okay. Well, you say the square. Zach?
Triangle.
He says the triangle. Anybody for the circle? We have a circle lady right here. Okay, thank you very much. There's always somebody that loves the circle because it's so nice, isn't it?
It's so red.
It has no sharp points to it.
Yeah.
But, do you see any circles on this bridge? Or any squares? This is the strongest geometric figure, the triangle. And Newton had a law, the second law of triangles. And we have what some people have written about, the golden triangle of liberty, which is to have virtue, you need faith. To have faith and virtue, you need freedom, and on and on. Virtue requires faith, faith requires freedom. At least that's the mindset of the founders. Not by force of arms civilizations are held together, but by subtle threads of moral and intellectual principle. What Russell Kirk, who was a friend of mine when I was your age, when I was a college student. So American federalism is full of triangles and checks and balances. So let's look at that now. Triangles. When a bill passes the U.S. House, is it a law?
No.
Professor, no. How about if it passes the House and Senate? Oh, how about House, Senate, the President signs it? So we're for majority rule 3 times. There's the triangle right there. So it's not that we're against majority rule in the founding, but rather we have to have... I'm sorry. You know, I was afraid this.
Pretty much.
I kept bumping into this. I'm sorry.
That's
Are
okay.
you okay?
No, I'm suing.
We have insurance. I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I apologize. I apologize.
You good? No, no worries.
It's standing on a triangle.
That's true.
That is ironic. It has a tripod, right?
If we were on a circle, it probably
had a
would not have happened.
There you go.
I just every time I go by there.
Point proven.
Okay. Sorry to interrupt here. So you can go out that way. All right. Thank you. Anyway, so you get the idea. 2-year terms, 6-year terms, and 4-year terms, because they're trying to reflect different mindsets of different times in history in the country. So America has sequential majorities, not just a simple majority. We have this in the court system too, which is if you're convicted here in the court, do you go to jail? No, you can appeal and you can appeal again. And we're finding this, of course, with all these constitutional law cases that are going through from the district to the appellate to the Supreme Court on questions of the Constitution. In both nonprofits and this college and businesses, we have the triangle. We have an outside board of directors, and IWP has a board of trustees. We have management here. Jim is part of management, Professor Robbins. And then we have an outside auditor. And then, of course, there's students, alumni, donors. So wherever you have transparency and triangulation like this, you have good governance, if you will. If you just had the board of directors as part of management and no outside auditor, you probably have corruption at some point, because this is the nature, unfortunately, of so many things in life. Now, there's 3 steps to elect the president. We have 50 Democratic votes. People say, I don't like the Electoral College, I believe in democracy. And we say, have we got a deal for you? We have 50 Democratic elections in the 50 states, and then we aggregate those in the state capitals. They vote, and then they read them again in front of the Congress to make sure there's no objections to them in the U.S. Congress. So we have 50 state Democratic elections, which is the Electoral College, and it's, if you read Federalist 68 by Hamilton, he says, if it's not perfect, it is at least excellent, because the electors meet at the same day at the same time, and so you have these 500 plus electors all meeting together or separately in the state capitals. And there's no way to get them in the same room, if you will, and persuade them or bribe them or do something, intimidate them. Here's George Will. America's constitutional system aims not merely for majority rule, but rule by certain kinds of majorities. All 537 persons elected to national office, president, vice president, 100 senators, 435 representatives are chosen by majorities that reflect the nation's federalist nature. So we have a Republican government, the Electoral College, but some people say it's undemocratic. It's part of voter suppression. The majority should always rule. Save our democracy. Remember, we said this is a republic, not a democracy. And yet 17 states have passed the national popular vote today. 17 legislatures and 17 governors have signed it. It says that we shall tell our electors, no matter how our state votes, to vote for whomever wins the national popular vote. That's what this compact says. Now, it's probably not a constitutional compact, but it's passed 17 states, and they have 209 electors. They need 270 to make it active as something on election night in the future. And so we, at Save Our States, we oppose that. Now let's talk about the European Union. We have some people from France here, from Budapest, and where's our Austrian?
Where he moved up.
Oh, he moved. The Austrian has moved his seat. Okay. How many countries in the European Union? S'il vous plaît.
27.
27. Okay. And here they are. Here's the European heads of state right here. They're required to always wear blue suits, as you can see. And Mrs. Merkel right here, this is why she's no longer in power. She has this red dress on. And so she just would not do the blue. But of these 27, how many have a direct popular election of their head of government? Does somebody from Europe want to answer? How many have direct popular election? Oh, we have 3 Europeans here. And no answer?
No, I'm American. I just listed one.
Oh, I see. Okay, we have an American who is in school in Vienna. All right. But you're French. Okay, very good. Okay, so no more of that. So the answer is 2. France has a national popular vote, they have a national primary, a runoff, etc. And Cyprus, which is a little island. Okay, very nice. All the rest elected by Parliament. By Parliament. Canada, New Zealand, Australia, Japan, Norway, India, Morocco, Singapore. These are places that they don't have a national popular vote. Of the top 20 populous states in the OECD, only 6 have a national popular election. They're listed right here. So majority rule, well, maybe. Why is it that only France and Cyprus have a direct popular election? All the rest use a 2-step method through Parliament. Why is that? Well, they had a revolution in France. Didn't go so well. They had a king, then they had a parliament, then they had Napoleon, which is another type of king, and then by 1815 they had a king again. This is why Tocqueville comes to America in 1835 to write Democracy in America, because his grandfather witnessed this, and his father, where they went from a king to a parliament to back a king, and he wanted to know, why is the American, we got rid of George III, and they don't have a king. They get rid of them, and it stuck. They have their democracy, but we in France are back to a king again, and that's why he wrote his book. They also had a second French Revolution, 1848. That's involved with the Second Republic in France. Matter of fact, in 1848, a hinge moment in history for sure, 30 European countries had revolutions. And here are some of the major battles, if you will, or contretemps of the 1848. It's a very, very turbulent time. When Napoleon goes out of power, then lots of kings and queens were challenged for their role in society. France has sort of lit the fuse of democracy, I guess you might say. And of course, guess what was written in 1848? The Communist Manifesto, all part of this sort of rebellious attitude here. Here's Burke, who was a contemporary of our founders, who was member of Parliament. In a democracy, the majority of citizens is capable of exercising the most cruel oppressions upon the minority. Abraham Lincoln, he runs for president in 1860. Was there a more difficult time to run for president than 1860? By the time he gets sworn in, March 3rd, 1861, 6 states had already left the Confederacy, and 5 more were on their way to leaving. 4 candidates, 2 Democrats, an independent, and Lincoln, a Republican. The second time the Republicans had run someone. They were an anti-slave party. And he won but he only won by 39.8% of the vote, which is the lowest in American history to this date, plurality, the lowest. And I want you to write that down if you're writing anything down, or memorize it, because we're going to talk about that when we get to Europe. The only reason he was seen as legitimate is he won the majority of the states, 18 to the 33 states. And in 1860, were states important? Are you kidding? They were very important. The federal government was very small, and the states did most things on their own. What is this? I think you'd say the British House of Commons, but this is the Electoral College of Great Britain as well, because this is where Churchill was elected, not by all Englishmen, as they say, only by his own constituency. You see, no national popular vote to this day. They have 10 parties, by the way. She was a prime minister for 6 weeks. She had no popular vote. She was elected by her parliament. No popular vote at all, head of government. No popular vote for 20 months. He was the prime minister. And now Mr. Starman just got elected with 33% of the vote this year. What was Lincoln? 39.8. Keep that in mind. So that's higher than this one. Here's Spain's Electoral College, 8 parties. Their current prime minister, 31% of the vote. Italy's Electoral College, 8 parties. No popular vote, the last prime minister. And the current one, Giorgia Meloni, 26% of the vote. So what's this majority should rule stuff? It hardly ever happens. Half of the American presidents, well, 15 American presidents have not gotten the majority vote. Germany's Electoral College, 7 people. Mr. Marsh just got elected with 28% because in coalition. The story is all of these are coalitions because they've atomized into many parties. We only have 2 parties in America because of the Electoral College. We can talk about that. And here's the German elections, how the different parties went. The Swedish 4-party coalition, his party got 19% of the vote. What was Lincoln? 39.8, 20% more. All right. The Swiss so fear the man in the white horse, if you will, that they have an executive council of 7 rotating heads of government. They don't have just one head of government in Switzerland. And these multi-party systems are very unstable. We have every 4 years, even during the Civil War, we had presidential election. You can plan on it, but European countries, 1 year, 6 months, 2 years, 3 years. Israel's Electoral College, 10 parties. Mr. Netanyahu last time got 23%. He's on his 3rd time as prime minister in the Likud party. This is Japan, 38%. Australia, Mr. Albanese, 33%. New Zealand, 38%. India, 36%. You get the idea. So 39 actually is higher than anybody except right now the Canadian Prime Minister has 43% of the vote he just got in their vote. So when Lincoln won, he was a clear winner in the majority of the states. So the Electoral College didn't protect slavery. The Electoral College helped end it because that war ended slavery in America. And if it wasn't for the Electoral College, he might not have been president, of course. We would have had a very different political system. But we have this 2-party system only because, and this has been since the early days of actually when Jefferson and Adams come in, because of the Electoral College. And Elon Musk wants to start a new party, but it's very, very hard. Ross Perot tried to do that. Eugene Debs tried to do that. It's really hard, and we can talk about why that is. But just think if we had 11 or 10 parties like the Europeans do, how often the Speaker of the House would change in America. And yet this national popular vote effort continues. It just was defeated in Michigan and Nevada, but it continues. So let's talk about the states and what a national popular vote would look like. 9 of our states have half of our people. Just 9, and it's not Iowa. New York City has more people than 39 of our states. Who's from New York? Anybody from New York? Okay. LA County has more people than 41 states. LA County has 11 million people. This is Los Angeles County. these cars don't move anymore. They live in these cars. They have small refrigerators, they have Wi-Fi, and they have a little bed in the back seat. And that's a certain way of life, right? Okay. This is a different planet, okay, Montana. Those people think differently about America than these people do, don't they? It's just the way cities are different than the countryside, right? And we want to have those mindsets reflected in how we govern. We don't want just big cities to rule everything. Not everybody wants to live there, and they're very well unmanaged sometimes. There's Manhattan, it's an island in New York. They have a park. They have a park, and how many acres are in that park?
20 or something.
How many acres in that park? 843. We have one person that knows this. And the question is, do they farm this park? Do they farm? Oh, they don't. Oh, they walk their dogs there? They jog there? They play baseball there? They swim there? 843 acres, and they don't farm. And yet look at this. This is Whole Foods in Manhattan. Look at all this food. But they're not farming. New York City must be dependent on, somebody else. This is why, since the convention system gave way to the primary system in our history, we have these people start our selection of the president. Because are they real, these farmers? I think so. This was, last year, the Iowa Republican caucus candidates. They had 5 candidates. Here's the Florida governor, DeSantis, talking to the governor of Iowa at the state fair, where you have to shake hands with people that have pigs and cattle and corn and soybeans. But Joe Biden dropped Iowa and pushes only further South Carolina. He skipped New Hampshire and Iowa. But here's his opponent in that primary, Mr. Kennedy, who did go to Iowa on a hay bale here. And then you go from Iowa to where? New Hampshire. So the farmers will give you advice for free. Free advice for presidential candidates. Here's some scenes from those. Everybody in New Hampshire has at least 3 meals with every presidential candidate. That's the thing. And I asked the former governor of New Hampshire why this system was important, and he said because people in New Hampshire can tell a phony across the table. Because when you have breakfast with somebody and you ask them a question, they better give you a pretty good answer. And here's Mrs. Clinton, here's Mr. Reagan, John Anderson, Howard Baker, Bob Dole, George Bush, here's Trump. You know, it's the greatest restaurant in the world, I'm sure, you know. And here's George Bush. You get the idea. We all know these scenes. This is a wonderful process of meeting with farmers and then small towns like this. In New Hampshire, these were the Republican candidates. But Mr. Biden I'm not trying to bring politics. This is a fact. We had a president who refused to be in these 2 primaries. And so we have to ask ourselves, if Mr. Biden had been in the Iowa primary with the farmers or in those small cafes, would that fate that he was facing in withdrawing from the campaign happen earlier because people would have been with him like we are today? The point I'm trying to make is these early primaries, which are very personal, help our process. Because what happens after those 2 primaries? Everything goes to stages and screens. All right? Everything is stages. The first 2 are retail, and after that, it's seeing people on stages and screens, not personally anymore. But people still push the national popular vote. Victor David Hanson said the Founding Fathers saw a purpose in the Electoral College and ensured small rural states retain importance in national elections. Why is that? Well, they feed the country. Here's the top 5 agricultural states, and Iowa, Nebraska, and Kansas, very low population states, are among the 5. We have the top wheat-producing states, agricultural regions, different crops in different regions. Natural gas certainly isn't in downtown Chicago or Manhattan. America's largest iron ore mine is in Minnesota. Very few people live there, but they allow people. This was my first job after college. I worked in this factory in East Peoria, Illinois, as a foreman. So if you see a Caterpillar tractor broken down on the side of the road, this was one that my line put together, okay? And this is 5,000 people in Chicago have a job because of iron ore mines and other things, obviously. But you need those rural areas to feed not only the people, but their factories, right? So save our republic. We have majority times 5. All of us need to be reminded the federal government did not create the states created the federal government. It's the oldest constitution in the world. It's been amended 27 times. If you want to amend it, you go to state legislatures and do it. You don't do the National Popular Vote Compact, which is an end run around the amendment process. I'm going to end on a positive note, the sinking of the Titanic. Right? Now remember when the Titanic hit the iceberg in the movie, happened in real life. The captain called his crew because this was a major problem. And the man who designed the ship was on the ship, as it turns out. And he rolled out the design of the ship. Do you remember this in the movie? And he says, to save money, we did not close the compartments. And therefore, once the water comes in, it will go over the walls and all the compartments will fill. And in 2.5 hours, he said, this ship will sink. And it did sink from 2340 to 218. It sank in 2.5 hours, predicted, because the compartments were not sealed. Now, this is a recount picture from the Florida recount. A lot of young people won't remember this, but we had a recount in Florida with the hanging chads. Some of the more older people know this scene. This fellow, he now lives in Jamaica. He had to leave Florida. He was in a lot of trouble. All right. But what did we have in our election? We had 50 state compartments. And when we had the recount, 49 states stood back and let Florida recount. We didn't have to recount 170 million ballots. Only the ballots in Florida. And then when we had the conclusion of that, we had a president because our states are sealed. Now let's look at the World Series here in the end. This is a very famous World Series, 1960, Bill Mazeroski, walk-off home run, bottom of the ninth, 7th game. Yankees were ahead. They were about to win the World Series. And he hits a 3-run homer, wins the World Series, and they win 4-3. I ask you, baseball fans, is that fair? They won the best out of 7, 4 games out of 3. Is that fair? Does anybody dispute that Pirates won that? Zach agrees with this. Oh, he's a baseball fan. Did you know in those 7 games, the Pirates had a total of 27 runs and the Yankees had a total of 54 runs, twice as many? Now, is that fair? Because they play 1 game at a time, just like we have 1 state at a time vote, right? We've had 2 presidents that did not win the majority of the states, only 2, Kennedy and Carter. But when Bush defeated Gore, even though Gore got more votes, Bush got 30 states and Gore got 20. And when Mr. Trump defeated Mrs. Clinton and she had more votes, Mr. Trump had 30 states and she had 20. You have to visit the states. She didn't go to some of the states that she thought she was going to win. So the national popular vote idea would sink the country because we'd have to recount the whole population. The USS Electoral College, all the compartments are sealed because of the indispensable Electoral College, separation of powers. Since 1904, the Electoral College elected 15 Democrats and 15 Republicans. It's not a Republican or Democratic institution. It's just part of our Constitution. Ironically, this is how it's worked out in the entire history of the country. There's never been any decision made about anything nor anyone using a national popular vote ever by design on purpose. It's a rich inheritance. It's the oldest constitution in the world. Europe was created by history. This is Mrs. Thatcher, a European. America was created by philosophy. We're going to end with Lincoln. Don't interfere with anything in the Constitution. This must be maintained, for it is the only safeguard of our liberties. With that, we'll accept questions if you have some. Thank you. Yes, sir.
Thank you for the,
An American in Austria.
yes, sir. Not sure if this is on.
Yeah, it's up.
Okay. Thank you for the presentation.
You're welcome.
I enjoyed it. My question is about tacit consent. Thomas Jefferson, one of the great founding fathers, he had the idea that every law should expire after 19 years because it is each generation and no law should go into perpetuity. He said the same for the Constitution.
Yeah.
He had the idea that the world belongs to the living. I just wanted to know what you thought about that.
Yeah. So I'm a conservative, small c. The idea of a conservative is you care about the past and you care about the future and not just about yourself. And as much as I admire Thomas Jefferson, I must say that that is a very egotistical thing to say politically. And by that I mean we don't care about the people that brought us to where we are as if we created the world ourselves. And of course he was a well-read man. He went bankrupt on wine and books, the cost of those things. But we also, the founders, cared about the future. And so I think as a conservative, small c conservative, we cherish. I started with Greece and Rome for a reason. And we love the architecture for a reason. And we love old paintings. Would we say, gee, every painting that was painted before I came along, let's do away with all those paintings. I only want to see contemporary paintings. And when I'm gone, they can have their own paintings. So I respect Mr. Jefferson, but nobody's perfect, including him. And I think this was a sort of a rebellious attitude because they had inherited all the tyranny that they inherited. And so, but it's a good question, very good question. Thank you. Yes, sir. What country are you from?
Oh, yes. My name is Paul, and I'm a Navy veteran.
Oh, good.
Oh, yes, and I'm from the South Korea.
South Korea, yes,
Yeah,
sir.
but these days, as you might watch the news on the Far East, South Korea is very vehement about some of the election fraud.
Okay.
So even though some of American diplomats strongly claim that there was election fraud in the influence of the Chinese Communist Party, and while the South Korean government...
It's about South Korea?
Yeah, it's
I haven't studied their elections, I'm sorry.
Yeah, but just like briefly, Korea has been under very strong influence of the United States from the founding and the Constitution.
Okay.
And
do you have a question?
Yeah, I have one question.
Okay, yeah.
Is there the risk of the national popular vote to be exploited by the liberals? That is what's happening here. Yeah.
Well, it's an idea of those that want to change the constitutional design.
Yeah.
And of course, what I do is we give speeches to keep the Constitution the way it is. We think it's a very good Constitution. It's not perfect.
Yeah.
It's been amended, but thank you very much for your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Zach.
Hi, Zach from Duke Law School. Thank you for your talk. I'm a huge proponent of the American constitutional system, and it's brilliant. But when I'm talking with my European friends, sometimes they bring up a history problem. I'm curious how you answer it. Since 1945, about 80% of presidential democracies in the Republican sense of democracy have failed, where almost all parliamentary democracies have been stable. I'm thinking of Brazil, Chile, Nigeria, the list goes on and on and on. What do you make of this historical problem? Are presidential democracies actually less stable and more prone to take over by either a military dictator or otherwise?
That's a wonderful question. I'll refer you to the Russell Kirk quote, which is, in the end, you could have all the structures, all the constitutional devices you want. If the goodwill of the people don't have in their minds and in their hearts that sense of self-government, then you will tend to tyranny. We could do that in this country. We haven't since our founding, but man's nature is broken. But my guess is whatever republics, constitutional republics with presidents you're talking about, probably had a very deep history of top-down governance. I don't know what countries you're talking about, and I'm not an expert on any country probably you're talking about, But I would think if you have a history of tribal leaders, for example, or in Brazil they've had military leaders. In Egypt had an election for a while, Muslim Brotherhood, and went back to the military. If you have a history of that, then you don't. The great thing about the British really gave us a wonderful thing, which is we were far away and they let us govern ourselves. And because we were a child of the Protestant Reformation, if you can elect your priest, you can elect your president. I mean, the thing about the Protestant Reformation is it disaggregated power even to the congregation, the Congregationalists. And therefore, congregations were electing their ministers. And so people owned their societies, their communities, their elections. And New England town meeting, there's 400 and some members of the New Hampshire House of Representatives. Almost everybody is a member of the House of Representatives there. It's really wonderful. So the British gave us this self-government coming from the Protestant Reformation. But if you're an African republic that's had whatever the religion is, if you had a top-down experience, it's very hard to disaggregate power. That's why I stress our nature is broken, and the founders feared. They feared our nature, right? And so they divided power. And Washington every day is constitutional contretemps, right? It's a good question. Thank you. Yes, ma'am. Are you from Australia, or what country are you from?
No, sir, I'm from the United States of America.
Okay, there you go.
Naturalized citizen.
Oh, very good.
And so I value this country.
Welcome.
To expand on your comment of the British heritage, I would add that it is not only the Protestant Reformation, but the Magna Carta in the 13th century that first promulgated the idea that governance should be at the community level, that justice should be swift and at the local level, and our tradition of English common law supports that. And when Washington and his troops were fighting for their rights as Englishmen, they were looking to what in their lifetime was a 500-year tradition of that kind of thinking.
Yes.
So some good ideas have been around for a very long time, and I think it's important for people to remember.
Yeah, what a good comment. Thank you very much. You know, I mentioned Burke, Edmund Burke, who was a member of the British Parliament, and he told George III, this was on the run-up to our war with the British, he said to George III, what you don't seem to understand is the Americans think they're British. They already think they're British citizens, and yet you're not giving them the rights of British citizens. They are children of the Magna Carta, right? Now, if you know 1757, Benjamin Franklin advanced the Albany Plan. It was his idea. He tried to get some of the states to have a convention called the Albany Plan, if you want to look it up. You know, have you seen the flag, the poster where they have the snake and it's cut up in pieces and it has the initials of the states? Franklin did that with the idea if we don't stand together, we'll hang separately. That was his thing on the Albany Plan. And the plan was, let's have a North American Parliament. We can still have King George III, but we get to elect our own Congress, and they will tax us, and not the British Parliament. So we didn't go to war originally against the British to get rid of the king or the parliament. We wanted to have our own parliament. We were English citizens. They just didn't get that. They thought we weren't. This is wonderful. So that history goes way back to the Magna Carta and beyond. And I should put Magna Carta on my slides. Just another slide, but you saw 188 slides, by the way, which is against all the laws of PowerPoint, okay? And I'm sent a bill every year, every time I send it, because you're not allowed to have 120 slides. So this is way over the limit. Any other questions? These are good comments, all right? Yes, ma'am, from Jamaica.
Yes, perfect. So my name is Diana Chisholm, and I'm from Jamaica. I attend Williams College in Massachusetts.
Yes, yes.
So my question is, you've been saying that the Constitution isn't perfect, and I think we can all agree with that. But in which areas do you see there needs to be a change in the Constitution, and why?
Okay, but some in the room will not be happy with my answer, okay? Is that okay? Okay. Number one, The 17th Amendment nationalized U.S. Senate elections because it used to be the state legislatures elected the U.S. Senate, right? Today, every U.S. Senate candidate gets 80 to 90% of their campaign funds from outside their state. So every U.S. Senate campaign is now a national election with millions of dollars coming in. Whereas if the legislature elected a senator, you can't bribe 200 people or, I mean, it's a disaggregated problem versus the aggregation. So that undid some of the beauty of our American federalism, I think. And the other one that was just the same year was the income tax. And I say that because we're now going bankrupt. We have $37 trillion in debt. Well, largely because of health care, but that's a whole different speech that I'd be happy to talk with you about. And it's because we can print money in Washington, D.C. There is no gold standard. All 50 states have to balance their budget because they can't print money, but our federal government prints money rather than give us the bill for what it costs, which means there's no discipline financially. And that's a real problem. So those two things really changed what the founders created, and I think that's the answer they would give. I hope that's helpful, but you may not agree with that. We have time for 40 more questions, so that's... No, is there another? We have to stop, right, Kay? So, well, thank you very much. You've been very good questions. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Thank you. There you go.
Okay, thank you.
You're the circle person.
Thanks, Michael. Wow, that was great. Well, I can thank Michael Maybach for giving that really amazing glimpse into the past and potential future of our country and why our democracy, why our republic, I should say, works the way it does. So thank you for that. Thanks to our sponsors. Thanks for all of you who joined us today. If you're interested in learning more about our courses or maybe even applying to study here at IWP, please speak with a member of our staff or visit us online at iwp.edu. And lastly, we hope you all save the date for IWP's 35th anniversary gala on October 9th, Thursday. It's not too early to circle that on your calendar. This will take place at the National Portrait Gallery. We don't know who the main speaker will be, but we're aiming high. We're going to try to get somebody important. Who could it be? You have to go to find out. Anyway, tickets and sponsorship options are available at our website at iwp.edu/gala. We hope to see you all year. Thanks for coming. See you next time.